This is another edition of For My People, and obviously today we're talking to someone who knows his way around both North America, Central and South America. It's Kenneth Snodgrass, who is an activist and an author, and he recently attended the second annual conference on Latin America that was located in Brazil. In case you didn't know, Brazil has more people of African descent than any country in this part of the world. Welcome to For My People. Tell us exactly what happened at the conference.
Okay, the conference proved to be a very important and experience for me. This was the second one that they had carried out, and as a result, one of the things that I had first mentioned to me as I got there was that there was 30 countries that were planning on attending. There was 17 delegations and approximately 130 people attended the particular conference. And the whole purpose of the conference was to talk about the necessity of the particular people struggling for further independence there, to struggle against the imperialism that was being waged from the United States, Great Britain, and various conquering countries, and the need to struggle against the neoliberalism that they keep projecting to these particular companies when it comes to the question of needing support, any kind of economic support. People tend to tell them what they want them to use with the money, and that spend less money on education and everything else at the expense of their country, not to give any kind of increases in wages and concentrate on various things.
And what about here in the United States? Was there any discussion about what we're having to deal with in the United States as it connects with, say, Brazil and other countries in terms of our economic needs?
I think that one of the major points that they pointed out that was in that discussed the question of capitalism, because this is at a point where people talk about world capitalism is going to collapse based on the particular economic crisis that we're in. And that crisis which the United States is facing, that of how banks have exploited the whole question of the citizens in this country all around the world, they also felt that impact there because it was having an impact on them as well. And at that same time, when they looked at it, they said that they needed to move further away from a system that would oppress the working class people at the expense of just a handful of rich people making all the money, and everybody else not benefiting from their own contribution to a society. So that, in that sense, they talked about capitalism and the crisis that capitalism was in, and the effect that it was having on other countries.
Well, I was more trying to get to the point of the fact that Brazil has been part of a agreement with the African Union in terms of exchange economically with what they call South America versus Africa in conjunction with, and so on. What I'm looking at is, are there ways that you, Kenny Snodgrass, me, Ron Scott, Project Bait, can have a connection with Brazil, African countries, Latin American countries, where there's a real basis of economic support for each other?
Well, I think it probably is, but the particular people that were there, you'd have to meet up with the particular actual delegations that were there compared to a lot of the union organizers that were there as activists. So it was a combination of things in that nature. But when you talk to people, then you can create barriers or openings for you to have more dialogue and try to express the areas that you want to further work on building with. So I think it was room for that. As a result, I wasn't trying to concentrate on one particular area that I wanted to pursue, but I was able to get the numbers from basically 10 different people, one from the Congo, one from Nigeria, people from Venezuela, people from Cuba. And in that sense, I started a rapport in that of trying to get in touch with these people further to continue a dialogue. Unfortunately, in Venezuela, in Brazil, they speak Portuguese, which I don't speak, so that creates a barrier. And also in Central America, they tend to speak Spanish, so it becomes another barrier.
So essentially, that means the Project Bay is ahead of the curve, because we've been talking about doing languages. So you can testify to the fact that we really need to be more diverse in terms of what we speak here in this country.
Yeah, but at the same time, as long as you go down there and you understand that situation, you're going to have interpreters. But then when people just freely write to you, it becomes a situation where if you don't have anybody, which I received some emails this past week from people who corresponded back with me, because when I got back, I was so excited. And when I talked to people down there and the presentations that people were making about the situation, the need for struggling against imperialism, the need for struggling against colonialism, as well as neoliberalism, they talked about what they wanted to be positive towards, the whole need for strengthening their government and strengthening their economic system, socially and economically.
But next time we talk, Ken, maybe I can ask you about, I know Brazil is one of the main countries that produces film and video product, in terms of whether or not there's a way to connect those kind of things. I would assume there is.
It probably is. They also had talked, when you talked about the economy, they had talked in Brazil, they talked about how, like in the banana industry, there 90% of the people were laid off.
Well, when you eat your banana, then you'll understand that you're actually eating something that real hands have not picked. But this has been another edition of For My People with Kenneth Snodgrass, who's an author and an activist, recently attended the second annual conference on Latin America, and hopefully you and others will have an opportunity to do that in the future. If you want to find out more about this interview or anything else you've seen here today, reach us on our website at projectbait.blackgold.net. That's projectbait.blackgold.net.